everybody. My name is Nicole Frankenhauser, and I'm the advisory coordinator here with WAN-IFRA, part of our global advisory team. We're going to go ahead and get started with our webinar. I am joined here today by Dean Roper here in Frankfurt. Dean is the Director of Publications, and today we are pleased to bring you a webinar featuring Chris Lee, President of Deseret Digital Media, and he will offer us tips on organizing for the next digital disruption. And essentially today's webinar is a great preview for our Deseret Digital Media and Local Media Association-led bootcamp scheduled for Hamburg Expo, part of our WAN-IFRA World Publishing Expo, October 7th and 8th. So Chris will go into his presentation, and afterwards we'll do a Q&A session. So we like to have our webinars as informative learning seminars. So if you just go down to your questions panel on your screen, you can write a question, and after Chris's presentation, we'll do a Q&A session. And just as a reminder, we have our webinars website live on our WAN-IFRA page, so you can come to the link above and see all of our upcoming webinars, and you can also look up our past webinars where we have all of our recordings placed there, so you can feel free to listen to any archived webinars. And also as a reminder, Chris Lee, President of Deseret Digital Media, was on our cover. He's featured. Dean Roper, our Director of Publications, wrote an article about the transformation that Deseret underwent in the last 5 years. And you can access your magazine download at the link below. And then there's an extended blog post with an extended interview with Chris Lee on our World News Publishing Focus blog. And I also have the link down below, so you can access that. And then we want to give you a little preview today and talk about the Deseret Digital Media Bootcamp. And so our panelist, Amy Stein, Director of Training and Development from Local Media Association, will be giving us some insight on what you can expect from the DDN Media Bootcamp at the Hamburg Expo. So, Amy, we're excited to hear more if you want to give us some insight on that.
Thank you, Nicole. And welcome to everyone on behalf of Local Media Association. We really just can't express how excited we have been to partner with Deseret Digital Media and now, of course, WAN-IFRA to bring digital bootcamp to media companies both in the States and across the globe. Our core mission at LMA is to help media companies discover and execute on new and sustainable business models. I don't think there could be a program better suited to provide a resource to media companies to do exactly just that in terms of really demonstrating and being able to visualize solid, tested, and truly executable tactics for innovation. As you can see here on the slide, there's some bullet points in terms of some of the programming that will be covered in the boot camp. The boot camp is really intended to and designed for senior level management executives that really want to have a true intent to transform their media company. It provides 2 days of training intended to really sort of accelerate the digital competencies and help you understand how to integrate those into your company's daily digital operations. So covering things as you see here, how to build a profitable native advertising plan, how to understand both principles of dual transformation, growing your core business as well alongside your digital business, optimizing programmatic, e-commerce, audience engagement, social, the list goes on. It's 2 days of content that it's almost hard to really verbalize the amount of good stuff that's covered over the course of the program. So as I mentioned, we've had executives since the launch of the program. We've had about 100 executives participate. We just launched this year. Attendees have come from both the States, but Canada, South America, South Africa, the UK. And we're just so excited about the feedback. It's almost been overwhelming in a very positive way. That we're consistently hearing things such as the single best training I've ever attended. If we were to do a net promoter score, I think for the program, I'm pretty confident we'd have we'd pass with flying colors. Just about everyone strongly recommends that their peers attend a future event based on their experience. I think one of the most important outcomes of that we're seeing after having completed now 3 boot camps this year is that we hear really great things from attendees who are going back to their companies and organizations and executing on a variety of the great takeaways that they left the event with, and everybody sort of picks their opportunity spots, but it's exciting for us to hear that this is actionable, and we're really giving those in the industry a great foundation and a great example of those who are innovating, but also in a practical way, so that you really can understand how to go back. The experience, I think, is also enhanced just by bringing together executives and peers that you can kind of dialogue with through the event. Sharing of best practices just among participants also is a real added value and opportunity to the program. So all that being said, we're really excited to be aligned now with WAN-IFRA and bringing this program to Germany in October. We really look forward and hope to see many of you on the line at the event, and certainly can contact us directly with any questions. We're localmedia.org. There's additional information on our site regarding the boot camp. If you want to get some more information, agendas there, you're able to download, see a couple videos and comments from folks who have gone through, as well as a list of the presenters during the program. So thank you, Nicole, for a few minutes to talk about the program, and again, look forward to seeing folks there.
Thanks, Amy.
You're welcome.
Yeah, this is Dean Roper. I'm the Director of Publications and Research at WAN-IFRA. I met Chris Lee about a little over a year ago at our Congress in Torino in Italy. I was moderating a session, I believe, on diversifying revenues, and I was fortunate enough to have Chris on that panel. And at that time, he was talking about a number of things, but he was already talking about mobile-ready revenue. And I was also fortunate enough, after a year, to run into Chris very briefly this year in Washington, D.C. And I wanted to do an interview with him for quite some time, because Deseret has been on the radar for many publishers around the world for their transformation strategies. And finally, Chris and I played email tag over a month, and we did the interview, and it was a pleasure. And so now Chris will talk to us about how to organize for the next digital disruption. So Chris, I hope you're there. Take it away.
I am here. Thanks, Dean, and thanks, Amy. I appreciate taking some time with WAN-IFRA. I'm looking to see how to switch over to my computer.
Okay. One second while we're working out some technical bugs here.
Oh, we see it.
And I think we are ready. Is it on?
Are we up?
Yes.
Yes, we are.
Okay, excellent. Thank you. All right. As Dean said, we've had some great interactions in the last couple of years, and Deseret Digital Media has been known a bit since for the last 5 or 6 years in creating an entirely digital organization out of a legacy business. Starting in 2010, we formed Deseret Digital Media with the assets of a legacy newspaper that was launched in 1850 one of the oldest newspapers west of the Mississippi in the United States, the digital assets of a TV and radio property called KSL. So DeseretNews.com and KSL.com became part of Deseret Digital Media. And we began building, growing the audiences for those websites in our local markets, and began building the revenue streams from digital. And over the next several years, we organized an entirely digital sales force, an entirely digital content team to focus on our websites and apps to really take advantage of the changes that were happening, significant transformation that was needed to take advantage of digital. The goal of all of that is to create a business that will be sustainable after print is no longer a viable business. And that day is coming. We don't know when that will be, but certainly that day is viewable out in the future when print is no longer a business that is sustainable. And the good news there is that we've built a digital business now that has had more than 30% growth rate over the last 5 years each year, and is significantly profitable. So we're happy to have an independent digital business that is of substantial size and really does create a pathway for us in a post-disruption world after print is no longer a viable business. And what's interesting about that is we've also got the assets of our TV and radio properties inside of Deseret Digital, and we've taken advantage of the opportunities to build an even more significant audience on our KSL.com property. And that is important because the disruption that is now taking place is clearly in the TV space. We're seeing significant challenges on the legacy TV side that, again, our digital business is going to be able to provide a pathway forward for our TV and radio properties. But all of that over the last couple of years has been threatened by the next wave of disruption, which, as you can see from the slide, is about mobile. And I'm just going to take you through a couple of thoughts about this. I've shared some of this with the in Washington, D.C. this summer. And the main challenge here, of course, is that in print, we've had a business model where about half of the content is, or half of the space is available for advertising and half for content. And then as you look at the web, the desktop web, about 75% of the usage of the space is for content, and about 25% is advertisable space. And of course, as you move to the mobile environment, it's an even smaller space available for advertising. This is a very simplistic way to think about the challenge that we face, but it's been very easy for people to understand when they see this simple fact. You hold up that little phone in your hand and you realize that there's not a lot of space for advertisers. And when we talk about mobile, we really are talking about the phone. Of course, the tablet is also an important device, but in terms of usage and growth, we really focus our attention on the phone, the iPhone and Android phone form factor. The other thing that happens with such a small space is that advertisers historically over the last several years have been willing to pay less for that space. So not only are there fewer ad impressions, but advertisers are willing to pay less for those impressions. And that creates an order of magnitude problem. An order of magnitude meaning a 10x problem. Just going through some simple math here, if you had 100 million page views in the course of a month or a year, and there were 4 ad units on that page at a $5 CPM per ad, that's $20 times 100,000, giving you about $2 million in advertising revenue. In the mobile environment, those same 100 million page views, same stories being read on a small device, might be able to produce one ad unit per page, and as we talked about earlier, a lower CPM rate of just $2. So you do the math there, and you end up with a revenue opportunity of just $200,000. And this is clear from all data that's coming out. There was just a story in the last week or two from the about mobile ad spending growing, but still substantially below where you would expect it to be given the amount of usage growth. So such a huge amount of time spent now on the mobile device, but still pretty nascent in terms of revenue. For everyone except really one or two, maybe three or four significant players in digital media, Google and Facebook in particular, which those two companies have really figured out mobile and have a substantial business in mobile. But very few local media companies have been able to take advantage and build mobile-ready revenue. So I'm just going to show you a bit about Deseret Digital Media, how we think about this next wave of disruption. Mobile-ready revenue is represented by the green bars, display revenue by the orange bars, and you can see revenue growth over the last 5 years at Deseret Digital, where display revenue has continued to grow even though mobile has exploded. But the part of the revenue that's growing even faster is our what we call mobile-ready revenue. So let me take just a minute and describe what mobile-ready revenue implies. So revenue sources that we've been able to grow. Desktop display advertising, of course, is what I've mentioned a moment ago, which is really dependent on a desktop page view. And that means that as people shift from the desktop to a mobile device in their usage patterns, those impressions are no longer visible. Those impressions no longer happen. And so if you're taking $1 of revenue for a desktop display advertisement, a banner ad, that advertising is not mobile ready. It's dependent on the desktop. Mobile display is the next category, and mobile display, as we've seen, is smaller and less visible than desktop display. It also, because of that, has less revenue associated with it, or lower CPMs associated with it. We think, and we've already started to see, geographical, behavioral, and other targeting capability because of the mobile device that will, we think, allow increases in CPM rate over time. All of the rest of these revenue sources, what we would call mobile ready. And I'll just go through them very briefly. Mobile display, we've just talked about. Video display. Video is increasingly being seen on mobile devices. The growth rate of mobile video is really through the roof for us and across the web. That's one of the reasons why Facebook and Twitter have had success in large global advertisers because of the growth, of the rapid growth in video advertising on a mobile device. The next category is marketplace listings, and for us, classifieds, online classifieds is a huge part of our business. Represents more than half of our overall web traffic on KSL classifieds, KSL cars, jobs, and homes. We beat Craigslist and all of the other competitors locally in those categories. Local directory, of course, from the print model of Yellow Pages has been a good performer for us as well. Lots of competition in that space, and for a local business to succeed in that space, there are lots of both technical and organizational issues to address. and in particular taking advantage of the connection that local publishers like we have with our local service providers, and creating a strong, continuing to build that strong relationship with our local advertisers to get them to use our local directory has been a big part of our success. E-commerce is a category that has potential on a mobile device. And I say potential because e-commerce has lagged a bit behind other uses of mobile devices, but from everyone from Amazon to Groupon has seen significant growth in mobile usage, even though again it's not as significant as other categories. E-commerce we have already seen have some significant opportunities for us in transactions and bookings. We have our own KSL Deals business. We do distressed inventory travel deals for people traveling to Utah, where we're based, and that's been a nice growth effort for us as well. The next area is native advertising and social promotion, and this is a category that has been discussed widely across the industry. Native advertising has probably 2 years ago was a bit controversial. There was a lot of question about whether publishers should be involved in native advertising, but over the last several years, standards have emerged. We've been a big proponent of native advertising and have been doing it successfully for 2 years now, and continue to see growth in both our creation of and publication of content clearly indicated as sponsored content, and our promotion of that content through social channels, all of which, of course, is highly useful for the mobile device. Syndication and licensing of content and services is another category that we've pursued. We offer in our native advertising business a solution for local publishers who want to get into native advertising. We call it Brand Forge, and it's a solution that helps publishers produce native ad sponsored content on behalf of their advertisers. We also have looked closely at premium services. Many on this call, I suspect, and in the industry, are pursuing consumer paid models, paywalls, as it's often referred to. And we certainly look closely at that. We do have a couple of models where consumers can pay us, but we don't yet offer a subscription service, and that's because our marketplace drives so much of our audience and so much traffic. Our objective is to keep access to our properties as friction-free as possible. And so we have not chosen to pursue a paywall, but that's another model that certainly would work and does work on a mobile device. And you're seeing significant players like the New York Times have great success with its digital subscription service, and much of its traffic now is coming on a mobile device. So I'm gonna stop there, and kind of that gives you a bit of a preview of the kinds of topics within our monetization that we will cover in much more detail at DDM's bootcamp. We had a bootcamp just in the last 2 days with a few dozen attendees in Utah at our offices in Salt Lake City, and it was just a fantastic group with publishers and editors from around North America. And as we talked about this mobile question, what was pretty evident is this is still pretty nascent for publishers to be thinking about the mobile challenge, as many publishers have just sort of scratched the surface on how to think about digital at all. And so we're really pleased to be talking about not only digital disruption and how to think about organizing a digital-only organization, but also now to think about the next wave of disruption, which is really the mobile device and shifting revenue streams to that mobile device. as now more than half of our traffic is coming from mobile experience. So with that, I think I'll stop and take questions that you might have. Again, this is a bit of a preview of some of what we'll talk about at boot camp. We'll also spend a lot of time on our content, on digital content, and some of the secrets about how to organize for digital content with a legacy business that produces content for TV, radio, and print, and then how to transition that to a more mobile-oriented consumption platform. So with that, I'll pass it back to Dean and take any questions that you might have.
Okay, thanks, Chris. Let's kind of go back just a step and follow the theme of disruption, but also on the boot camp a bit. But going back to when you talked about in 2010 that DDN was set up as a separate business. Now, the people that you're talking to in some of the boot camps that you've had, I assume most of those publishers have not done that?
That's generally true, yeah, Dean. I think many regional publishers and smaller publishers have attempted to address digital with maybe a digital manager, a digital general manager, maybe a VP of digital, but their mandate is really to take content that was produced for the legacy platforms, in particular for print, and you reuse that same content for the web. And I think most publishers who've pursued that strategy have realized that they're not generating the kinds of digital audiences that they need in order to create revenue streams that would sustain their content production. And especially if they imagined a day when print no longer existed. They have not built their organization to be ready for the day when when it's all digital, and in particular where a big chunk of it is mobile.
Well, let me ask you, if we go back to 2010 or anybody that might be doing this, are there two parallel challenges, say, if you're going to try to set up a separate digital business, in the sense of what's the greater challenge? Adapting that traditional legacy business in terms of the mindset and getting everybody on the same page to try to adapt to the new culture of digital within that legacy business, or setting up the digital business itself from scratch and starting to hire staff, new sales staffs. I guess they're both a big challenge, but what are some of the things that you think about if you go back to that time, some of the challenges that were faced?
Well, the first thing I'd say is that in any disruption, there's a real tendency of the legacy business with its own model to stop or slow the disruptive part of the organization from succeeding. And that seems really counterintuitive or strange, but what happens is that there are vested interests in the legacy organization. I'll give you an example. So if you're selling print and you walk into a buyer, an ad buyer, you're selling print, there's been a long history of that seller selling print and the buyer buying print. And there are often, ad quotas, sales quotas that ad seller needs to hit. And often it will be the easiest path for that ad seller to sell a little bit of print, to sell another print deal in order to meet their quota.
Yeah.
But it's if that process continues and the ad sellers are focused on print, two things happen. First, digital does not get the attention it deserves from the sales team. And just as important, maybe more important, is that the buyer as their marketing dollars shift over to digital, they look at that print seller and say, that's not our guy for digital. That's not our seller for digital. We need someone with a digital expertise who can help us spend wisely in digital, who can help us monitor the right kinds of metrics, who can help us think about all the ways that we might spend these dollars as we shift resources from, you know, outdoor or print or TV or radio into digital. In many cases, people's budgets are not overall, their marketing budgets are not increasing overall, they're shifting where the budgets are spent. And that digital buyer, one of the mantras at Deseret Digital Media that was really created by Clark Gilbert, this is his lingo, but a digital buyer deserves a digital buyer deserves a digital seller. And so that's just one aspect of this, but the same logic I could go through on the content side and say, you know, we've had experiences that may not be surprising to some who have dealt with this, but when I first came to Deseret Digital Media, not having been in a print publishing business previously, I was surprised because there were processes in place in the organization that were really designed on the content side to protect print and to protect the way of doing things that we'd always done things. Just a very simple example. We had one of our content people on the digital team had previously been on the print team and had a background as a photographer. And when we began taking photos from our users, having users submit digital photos that we could use in, let's say, high school sports stories or, you know, other very hyper-local stories, this particular web editor refused to post them because he said, this is not our level of quality. This will hurt our brand. And of course, what he was referring to is the fact that these were not photos taken by professional photographers, which he was in the kind of mode of wanting to protect. And we have fantastic professional photographers on our staff, but we have to be able to think about our content sources differently in order to take advantage of this digital opportunity. And that's not something that the print organization was really designed to do. And so that's something that we've now fully embraced on the digital side. We have a remote contributor network we've created called Deseret Connect, where we get photos and video and content, written content, from our audience, from thousands of contributors who produce content for us that sits alongside our professional journalist produced content. And users, at least in terms of our audience growth, have seemed to really enjoy the fact that we're now covering things that we weren't able to cover previously in a model that was entirely print-centric.
Okay. I'm going to take a different line for a minute because we have a good question from Alan in our audience. Speaking of disruption, many sales staffs around the world would argue that programmatic is a disruption. His question is, how does Chris see the programmatic era in regards to his mobile readiness? Friend, enemy, or frenemy?
Yeah, I like that. That's a great question, and it's well put. I think frenemy is the right answer. As it is with most innovations, I think there's always a chance that an innovation can be valuable or can be detrimental, and that's certainly the case with programmatic. We've found that in our business, we generate close to 1 billion ad impressions a month among our various websites and apps. And with 1 billion ad impressions, it's pretty difficult to sell out all of our inventory directly with local advertisers. And so we do open up a big chunk of our inventory to programmatic. And for us, that represents a very substantial revenue stream and an important revenue stream. And also, it opens up the possibility of getting outside market revenue for what amounts to a relatively small market. I mean, Salt Lake City, Utah is about the 30th or so DMA market size in the United States. A mid-size American market. And programmatic gives us the opportunity to go get national dollars in ways that we wouldn't otherwise. So that's been helpful for us. We also have built some really sophisticated systems in terms of what we think of as a waterfall of networks that compete against each other for access to our audience. And in that competition, we've been able to see our average CPM rate of our indirect inventory grow pretty dramatically. We've grown average CPM rate over the last year by about 25%, and that has a huge material impact on our overall financials, given the size of our of our impression numbers. I hope that's helpful. We will plan to get into much more detail about programmatic. We've actually got a presentation about programmatic that we will use at Bootcamp and go into a lot more detail about this waterfall, how we think about programmatic generally, indirect programmatic versus direct programmatic, which is an emerging part of the business as well, where local advertisers who we normally sell direct to want to use an automated process in order to place advertising, and we're happy to work with them in that regard as well. In that way, we really see programmatic as an efficiency mechanism that is more friend than enemy. I hope that's helpful.
I think so. He has another question along that line. Is how does your programmatic approach affect your sales organization and the competences needed to the future of sales?
Oh, another fantastic question. So our sales organization is really divided into three groups. We have our enterprise sales team, which is the kind of the classic large client direct sales organization, and they're the ones with the deep and ongoing relationships with the largest advertisers in our market. We then have an inside sales team, which is a call center and does outbound calls to small and mid-sized businesses with much smaller overall price tag, so to speak, per advertiser. But we've built over the last year a performance team, and the performance team does a couple things. We have two parts of that team. We have an indirect buying team or an indirect sales team that is responsible for managing the waterfall, and it has, we have a couple dozen networks that we work with, and in our case, we have very stringent rules about what kinds of advertising we will accept or we will reject. We have not been big fans of Outbrain or Taboola. We think that kind of native ad content that gets fed automatically into pages really sullies the brand of many publishers. We're not fans of that kind of native advertising from those partners. In general, they have some exceptions to that, but we've had a hard time working with them because the quality of advertising that they're providing us with really does not live up to our brand. And then we have a team that is focused on the analytics to serve the rest of our sales organization. We call it our ad performance team. And this is where the question that Alan asks is really critical, because that team is full of quantitative analysts who can help our advertisers be successful. This is a good example, Dean, of the question you asked about why you want a separate organization. Our digital performance team just wouldn't exist in a print or TV environment. There might be sort of a services team in a legacy organization that would help clients be successful. But this particular group is focused on all the metrics that the clients are trying to measure. So for car dealers, they need to know how many users of our website that they marketed to make it onto their lot to do test drives or to eventually purchase. In the case of a restaurant that might advertise with us on KSL Deals, they want to know how many deals were redeemed, how many people took a look at the restaurant before buying. These are the kinds of, again, just some simplistic examples there, but these are the kinds of examples where our performance team can really make a huge difference. And what we do is we bring them along. In the software world, you might think of this performance team as the sales engineering team. In software, there's a salesperson who's the one with the relationship, who's the one who understands the client's needs, but they often will bring in a sales engineer who can talk in much more detail about the aspects of the product and who can make sure that the client is getting value out of the purchase that they've made. Help them with implementation, help them with mid-campaign performance metrics, and then post-campaign analysis so that we can get renewals of those contracts.
I have one quick question and then one final question. The question is, what percentage of your mobile audience is accessing your what percentage of Deseret's audience is now coming to you through mobile channels only?
That's an interesting question. I don't know that number off the top of my head. That's an interesting question. So we know that our overall audience is now about half mobile.
Right.
But I'm looking at total number of unique visitors and total number of page views. Okay, those are some, again, very simplistic ways of looking at that. But the question that's being asked is more sophisticated and is actually a really, really good one. It's asking what percentage of our users are only accessing over the, on a mobile device, and in particular on a phone. And I don't know the answer to that. It's certainly growing. We know that. And what we could do is probably take the delta of what our natural growth rate of audience has been, and take a look at the difference between that and what it actually has grown, and that would be the mobile-only usage. And it's it's not a huge percentage of our audience, but I would guess it's in the 15 to 20% range now at this point.
Okay, good enough. Now, our audience has put you on the spot a lot here. So the final question is really get ready. If you would found a digital or cross-media content-based startup today on your own, what would it be, and would you pay for it?
If I were to start a cross-media business today,
startup. If you would create a startup, a digital startup on your own, what would it be, and would you pay for it? I think that's a huge question, but
it is. Well, I'll just give you a couple thoughts about that. I don't know that I have a definitive answer, but I'll give you just a couple thoughts. One of the biggest challenges that we face as local publishers that are responsible to our communities for producing news and for covering to protect our freedoms, frankly. I mean, this is now a soapbox kind of serious conversation about journalism. The problem with that model, in whatever form it takes, is that content costs a lot of money. It costs a lot of money to have a team of journalists, to have editors, to do the kinds of fact-checking and work that is needed in order to produce great content. Unfortunately, all of the ancillary businesses that used to support journalism are now being stripped away and are being done as standalones. Just take cars, the auto category, as an example. In the US, Auto Trader and Cars.com are huge players, who can operate independently of any content. In fact, they charge money to those who are posting the content on their properties, and then they let, you know, it's a traditional sort of a classifieds model. But they've stripped away any of their content costs, so they're not having to produce local news as part of their cost structure. And this allows them to invest more heavily in technology, to create better websites, to create great usability, to grow their marketing, and to make sure they've got a huge audience for people to look who are looking for cars. Obviously, this puts local content businesses in a disadvantaged position. And so what we advocate for is that local publishers like us have to have these ancillary revenue streams. We have to protect these revenue streams that are coming from our local car dealers, our local employers who are posting jobs for job seekers. We want to be in that position, as local media should be, of creating relationships between audience and our advertisers. That is a community responsibility that we have. And as you can tell, I'm talking more about a cause or a mission in that than I am about a business model or an investable opportunity. And I guess what I'm saying is I'm not sure what the future is for profitable ownership of local media. And as you're seeing, at least in the U.S., a lot of local media businesses are now being bought up and owned by billionaires who want to have a voice, maybe more than they want to make a profit with these local media businesses.
That's a great answer. Really, I wouldn't want to answer that question. Okay, Chris, thank you so much. Nice to talk to you again, and I'm going to turn it over to Nicole to wrap it up. All the best.
Yes, thank you so much to our audience for asking such engaging questions. I'd like to especially thank Chris Lee for presenting today. It was a wonderful webinar. I feel like we've learned a whole lot on organizing for the next digital disruption. And a special thanks to Amy from LMA for giving us an overview on what you can expect from our DDN Bootcamp at our World Publishing Expo. So we hope to see you there October 7th and 8th this year. And if you have any questions, you can contact me directly, Nicole Frankenhauser at WAN-IFRA.org. And yeah, I can answer any questions you might have about the boot camp and the curriculum there for the 2-day training. And we hope to see you at our next webinar in our WAN-IFRA webinar series. Thanks so much, everybody. Have a great day.